Well, hello chat, here we are. 2025 has concluded, and this year was a very big one. It wasn't massive like last time because there were less games this time around, but it was pretty good. In 2023 we had a run of 38 games. In 2024 it almost got doubled with the total amount of 63. And for 2025 we had 56. 7 less compared to 2024, but yeah. That aside, I think it's time to just hop into the games I played in 2025. January. So starting off January with a certain stinker, I will hold back on saying my thoughts about the entire series until I get to the final one, which is later in the year. But yes, starting off with January as the first game of 2025, which was even mentioned in Gippy 2024, it's Ninja Gaiden Sigma Black. As an avid hack and slash and character action fan, it being in my top 3 genres, it really hurt my soul to see just how unfun the game was. I heard it was praised by many people, but the issue I had with it is just too fucking hard for no reason. If I wanted to play a hard game, I'd play a Souls game. I'd play God Hand. Ninja Gaiden is basically just marketed as a stylish hack and slash, but without the style. I shit you not, just the amount of encounters I had to hit and run, it was just insane. I had to do things I would never want to do in hack and slash games, and it just doesn't feel right. The controls didn't feel good, the story didn't captivate me, the characters were fulfilling because I finally see them as characters and not, Rule 34. Listen, it's a shitty one to start the year on and probably a really bad impressions for this video, but this game truly was not my thing. Not just the game, but the series itself. I haven't played Ninja Gaiden 4, that'll be the first game of 2026, but the things I'm hearing about it, it's not Ninja Gaiden. That makes me excited, because I do not like Ninja Gaiden. I want a fun, stylish hack and slash. It can be hard, look at DMC3's Virtual Fights, but don't make the difficulty be 90% of the game, it's just exhausting. Ninja Gaiden 1 was a very iffy impression, and I can't remember if I dropped it. I think I dropped it past the halfway point. Regardless, I give it a 6 out of 10, maybe even 5.5, because there were things I liked about it. And even if I despised most of the difficulty and the level design, it's nice to see where Team Ninja started. And some of the weapons were interesting too. Then we got Warhammer 40K Space Marine. A stark contrast to not having fun, Space Marine 1 was just pure and utter fun. I had such a blast playing it, but it kinda did overstay a little bit and got a bit too basic throughout the game. It was still really fun to play through as my first Warhammer game. Keep in mind I'm a Bricky fan, and that man got me into the lore of Warhammer. It was still a fun time. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but I had fun. The combat was very 2010s coded. Military shooter, obviously, but yeah. Fun game and a good build up to play Space Marine 2. 7.5 out of 10. A very dated experience, but nonetheless, it's simple and fun. Not to mention the power fantasy of being a Space Marine. And now the second stinker of the year. So this year didn't have many stinkers, but the ones that are here, not particularly great. SMT Strange Journey Redux. So many people were hyping this SMT game up. So many. And it turned out to be my least enjoyed SMT game to date. Even Soul Hackers 2 was infinitely more enjoyable. Even Persona 2 Innocent Sin was better. Strange Journey was a game that was ruined by the dungeons. The premise itself, the setting of Schwarzwald, and basically most of the story and lore of the game, all of it was genuinely great. The characters, the alignment reps, they were interesting. I loved Jimenez. I think Zillion is a decent lore rep. I think Alex is a great character, but the game suffers from the dungeons that are just built on tedium and built on making you suffer. Sector E and Sector G were truly the breaking points. E specifically, I was halfway through Sector E and I decided to, for the first time ever, take a break on a game. I took a 2-week break and I came back to see if it helped detilt me. And wanna know what happened? It didn't. I continued out of spite, getting it out of the way, because as much as I hated it, I really, really loved the setting. Strange Journey is a game I never want to play again, but it's a game I could watch 10 video essays on and not get bored. It was so unique and captivating, but it's a shame that the dungeons are just abysmal dog shit built around making you suffer. I get that it's an uncharted place. The crew is God knows where. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but God, it's just every single sector is unfun. Besides Karina and the first one, and not to mention the combat being just so mediocre. What did they do to my beloved press turns? They made it so brainless. One more is way better than this, honestly. Strange Journey is, like I said, not worth the journey. But I'd say avoid playing it to save yourself the sanity, but just watch video essays on it and look up lore because genuinely it's a cool concept and probably the most unique SMT game I ever played. 6 out of 10. Okay, buddy.
Georgie!
Okay, buddy. 確実に仕留めるためのプランを提示。最良の結果を期待している。
はっ！死ね！
Time to move on to something better. Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 is just Space Marine 1 but modernized and with an even bigger blast. It was just improved on every aspect, gave you more tools for combat, made every encounter feel large. It had good gimmicks, it had co-op, good fights, decent story. It was just all around good. The only issue I remember is disliking the main hub for some reason. Oh, and the performance tanked during the turn-at section sometimes. Still an incredible game, 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, now we get to another banger, Severed Steel. So Severed Steel was in my wishlist for quite some time and was worth every penny. It has environmental destruction, the movement is just so much fun and it's so fast paced. Now, if you're astute and if you watched my Ultrakill yapping, you'd remember. I hit Unk status. I'm not enjoying games that are so fast paced because I want to enjoy the game itself a bit more. Same thing applied here. There was just too many moments where so much stuff was happening that is just moving and moving and moving, and if I stop moving I die. It was a blast. Great art style and an addicting gameplay. With an amazing destructibility of basically destroying everything. 9 out of 10. Now the final game of January. I Am Your Beast. Watch the video to see my full thoughts. It was one of my favorite vids ever made, but the game was just close to a genuine masterpiece in every sense. It knows what it wants to do, and it does it not just good, not just great, but perfect. It's a speedrun game, really, and not even my Unk status made me dislike it, even a slight bit. It reminds me of Ghost Runner, where I can just fuck up and immediately reset without 1 second of loading. Just genuinely instant. And I try a different approach, and so on. And that's only the combat. The story, the narration, the characters, Alphonse Harding's voice actor was genuine kino. Hell, even the Goon's voice acting was top notch. The OST, everything. Everything was close to perfect. The only, and I mean the only issue I had was the length. I've said way back in 2023, no matter how peak a game is, if it's like sub 6 hours, it's not perfect. I think the ideal playtime for me, for a game to be perfect, is around 8 to 10 hours. The 6 hour range is also barely passable, but I would love if there were like 5 to 10 more levels. I mean, sure, there were the optional levels which were hard, but I'm talking story. That's all really. The game is genuinely a 9.8 out of 10, just held back by being too short. February. Okay, it was an interesting one. The one that started by giving me the biggest stinker of the entire year. Genuinely the worst game I played in the last few years. Wanted Dead. I thought it was gonna be fun bad. A friend told me to play it because it was fun bad. But it was just straight up bad. No redeeming qualities, abysmal controls, really ugly looking models. Bro, I swear they managed to make Stephanie Justin look ugly. How was that possible? I genuinely think she's one of the most beautiful women of all time and they make her look like shit. The story is bad, the dialogue is atrocious, everything about this game is just fun. It's just bad, it's not fun. I actually gave it a 4 out of 10, but honestly I might just drop it to like a 3.5. It's really bad. Nothing redeeming. It's not even charmy jank, like for example Steelrising later in the year. It's just bad. Okay, then we get to Ninja Gaiden Black 2. So compared to Ninja Gaiden 1, I do think the game was better, but it's like saying a normal piece of poop is better than diarrhea. Okay, I'm being aggressive. It's better than 1, but it's still not actively my type of game. It's just an It's just not a normal hack and slash or character action game. It was fine. It is 7 out of 10. Also, it was the first Ninja Gaiden I finished. The first and only. Because, well, so far. Because, well, spoiler alert, I dropped Sigma 3, but we'll get there in May. Following Gaiden Black 2, we got Warhammer 40K Boltgun, a game that overstayed its welcome by a good chunk. It's a solid boomer shooter with cool art style, but the gameplay lacked variation and the levels were the big issue with it. The levels gave you no sense of direction. I probably spent 50% of the time aimlessly wandering the levels instead of progressing, because it's hard to see the golden path. 6.5 out of 10. Good enough game, ruined by the level design and yeah. Now then, Remember Me. Remember Me is a fascinating game. I wanted to play it for a while, and when I finally got to it, it's such a blast. I'm honestly really sad that, ironically enough, the game is forgotten, because the game is genuinely great. In fact, I'd say it teeters on being amazing, but it's held back by some issues. I love the story, I love the memory changing minigame, and thought that was the cyberpunk brain dances, but done well. It was such a cool mechanic that I wish it was used a few more times. The music, god, the music was good. The setting of the game, the characters are good enough, but the combat was just so much fun. But within it lied the issue. The combos are customizable, you can make different combinations do different things, which is insanely God Hand-esque. But it's only customizable for a few templates. You can't make like actual new combos, new strings. So for example, you can't make your own XY combo. There's only a pre-built XYXYY combo. You can only use the predetermined button presses. You can customize what you do with them and what their effect is, but not the way you do them. Like you can make one of them heal, you can make them stun, and you can make them more damage and so on. If the game allowed you full freedom, holy peak, it might be God Hand levels. Unfortunately, it's held back by that. The game has a lot of everything. Uncharted-esque platforming sections, puzzle sections, brain dances, combat sections. It's such an underrated game. 8 out of 10. Maybe it can get a sequel in the next 10 years, or at least a successor, because the present system is very interesting. Now, time for a P5R replay. Check the yapping video. I still think P5R is genuinely the top 3 Megaton games, and that's not a Persona 5 only take. Again, I went through most of SMT and Persona, so take it how you will. I think the story in the third semester is better than most of Persona 3's story. I think in general the base game also is better than Persona 3's story. It's not perfect and it's not my favorite story because 2 and 4 exist, but it's far from bad. In fact, it's amazing. Up until the end. The palaces are still to this day the best SMT dungeons, and also this was the first time that I played the game modded, and goddamn how much fun it was. 10 out of 10. It's a Persona game. I can't read it. I'm biased. Now we get to Pirate Majima. So the latest RGG entry, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, was fine. I've done quite a few vids on it and my thoughts have changed with time, more on the negative side in fact. I gave the game an 8.5 originally, but now I'm gonna drop it to a good 7 out of 10. If the story was better, it would be an 8. If the combat didn't require mods to be incredible, it would be a 9. Alas, it's a fun enough game that lacks any memorability. I still haven't played a single session since beating it. It's far from bad. It's just the first genuinely mediocre game in a while. That's a 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 on a good day. And now we move on to March. So starting off with the second marathon of the year. First was Ninja Gaiden, and now we have the Mafia Marathon. Mafia 1 Definitive Edition was such a treat to play. The most important thing that made me truly love the experience was me playing with a black and white filter and the old film GeForce filter. It felt so good, and I'm 2002. It really felt old school. The story was great. The combat was great, but not all over the place. The setting was immaculate, and everything about it, it was great. Up until the final hour where the story just falls apart because it needed a betrayal. Such a bad betrayal, or on the other hand, a betrayal that could have been good if it was paced better. The story fell apart at the end and ruined a 9 out of 10 into, I would say, an 8 out of 10. Mafia 1 is, spoiler alert, my favorite Mafia game. Now, I was gonna move on to Mafia 2, but I forgot I did Crisis Core FF7 next. So we'll speedrun this train wreck. Crisis Core was fine. I get that it's a PSP game. In fact, that just makes more sense now after looking it up. But it was just bad. The animations did look PSP era. The combat was whatever and everything, but the soundtrack was just painfully mediocre. Soundtrack was great, but it was such a chore to get through. 6 out of 10. Okay, and now we go for Mafia 2. Mafia 2 is supposedly everyone's favorite. Not mine. I do think that Vito is the best Mafia protagonist, or at least was, because Enzo from Old Country is on par with him. But Mafia 2 was also played with the film and black-white filter, and it was such a great experience. It did like any sort of emotions for me. Like, the game didn't hit like Mafia 1 did. Vito and, I forgot what's his name, his brother or cousin or whatever. He was good, but everyone else was just kind of whatever. Alright, and the old guy. See, I can't remember their names. I can see vaguely why people think the game is their favorite, but even the combat felt kinda okay. It was a good game, but not as good as 1 in my opinion. 7 out of 10. Mafia 3 will be a tad bit later because I took a short break. Now, okay, we have killer frequency. I don't like puzzles. In fact, anytime there's a puzzle in the game, if I don't solve it in, let's say, 3 minutes, I always Google what to do. I do not like puzzles and platformers. It's subjective, but I really wanted to try this game, and thankfully it wasn't that hard puzzle-wise. The concept of being a radio host, trying to help town people escape a serial killer is just so peak. It was so suspenseful, elevated by incredible voice acting, amazing music, and a good story. The killer's reveal at the start and then at the end is just so well done. Thankfully, I managed to avoid many casualties. I think only like 3 people died, or 4. But I had such a blast. This game is special, and if you're someone like me who dislikes puzzles, this is worth playing because they're not even that bad, and it's not even pure horror too. I had a feeling it was gonna be scary, and well, at times it was. But that's why music on full blast exists. Thank you, Spotify. But even as someone who doesn't do horror and puzzles, this game had everything against it, but it still pulled out such a clutch. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It was so memorable. Next up, we got Elden Ring Reforged. So, in my 360 hours of playtime, I haven't done a single Elden Ring overhaul mod. And so I tried Reforged. Reforged was extremely good. It had quite good quality of life changes, and it added some cool stuff like perfect blocks and so on. Unfortunately, I can't remember what my issue with it was, so yeah, 8.5 out of 10. Base game of Elden Ring is still great, much better than Shadow of the Erdtree. Okay then, now we got the Yakuza 8 Brawler mod, which I made a video about. It was a fun time, 8 out of 10. Okay, now the big one, Mafia 3. Mafia 3, what to say? What to fucking say about this game? It's funny because... Okay, well, sit down for a second, this might surprise you. Mafia 3's first 10 hours are genuinely my favorite Mafia game. I know, shocking. But there's a lot of caveats. First off, the game doesn't feel like a Mafia game. It's a Mafia revenge story, albeit an incredible revenge story, and Lincoln Clay is such a cool and ruthless protagonist. The opening of the game and everything for a while is genuinely great. But then the bloat hits. The game keeps going with the same fucking missions. The same missions that were fun to do at the start turned into genuine disgust. I hate how this game turned out. I hate that I dropped it when they got to the fighting boxing ring, because I loved the story and where it was going. I loved a lot about it. It was consistent, despite not liking the setting compared to 1 and 2, because again, it does not feel like a Mafia game. It just fell apart. It turned from a genuine 8.5, or maybe even to a 9, to a 6.5. Amazing protagonist, great revenge story, bad Mafia game, and at the end it just turns into into a bad bloated mess. If the game ended at the 15-hour mark, it would be an 8. If it ended at the 10-hour mark, it would be a 9. But at the 25-hour mark, I dropped it. 6.8 out of 10. I don't want to give it a 6 because I did have genuine fun and actually had a blast, but it came at the cost of bloat later on and just doing the same thing over and over again. Actual fun turned into suffering. It's not a bad game, per se, but it's a game that turns worse the more you play it. Such a shame. That's all for March. Now it's time for my birth month. April was, funnily enough, a short month, but it did contain chunky games. One of them being, cinema. But let's start off with an iffy take. FF7 Rebirth. Rebirth was a great game. I have not played the original, so I can't argue if it's a bad remake like Integrate. But what I can argue is, I'm a Yakuza fan, and the game feels like it's too silly for its own good. Keep in mind, the only FF games I played are 15, Stranger of Paradise, and 16. And Crisis Core, before it. It felt like Whiplash with so many stupid, quote-unquote comedic moments. The dancing minigame, the beat section, all of that stuff. The game is just bloated with things to do that are either okay or just not fun. It's another case of, if it was shorter it would be a 9, but it's not. In fact, it overstays. The combat is probably my favorite FF combat so far, but the issue is the pacing of the story, or the non-existence of the pacing. The game is just so goofy for its own good. At least Stranger of Paradise was edgy goofy, This is just cringe goofy. The music was incredible. Water is wet, I know. But Sephiroth is just such an overrated antagonist, I swear to God. I don't know what to tell you. Did I have fun? Yes. Was I captivated? No. A game that we'll get to very soon gave me more emotional impact in the first 30 minutes than this entire game did in 54 hours. 8 out of 10. A very generous 8 out of 10. I think FF16 is still my absolute favorite FF game by a long shot. But I do think that this game has way better combat. Doom 2016 Replay. In preparation for Dark Ages, I revisited 2016 and Eternal. Eternal a little bit later, but 2016 was first. And 2016 is still so good, it's insane. It did feel like Whiplash because after Eternal and not playing 2016 for many years, it plays so much slower, and keep in mind it's not even slow. It's just that Eternal was that fast. The combat loop is still addicting, the level design is great, the music still rips and tears, and the game still feels insane. 8.5 out of 10. Now we get to cinema. The game that swept the Game Awards. Expedition 33. Do I think it deserved a sweep? Yes. But also no. RPG should have went to KCD2, and the art direction should have went to Silksong. Also, it's not an indie game, but everything else, the performances, the narrative, the music, the game of the year, all of it was deserved. Easily. The game is in my top 7 of all time. I think it stands tall, and I have a feeling Sandfall won't be able to top it. Because how else do you follow up on this? How else am I supposed to get this game out of my mind? Since beating it, listening to the soundtrack constantly every day, constantly thinking about the endings, constantly thinking about the story, about what they can do with this universe. It's just, oh my god. Watch my video where I go over the game and my thoughts. But yes, the game is not perfect, but it is close to perfect. Then we move on to May. May was one of the months of all time, starting off with the current conclusion of the Ninja Gaiden games. And by that I mean starting Ninja Gaiden Sigma 3 and then dropping it after 3 hours. 5 out of 10. I don't really want to say anything about it. I'll likely make a video on the entire series after playing Ninja Gaiden 4. But yeah. It was... Then we moved on to replaying Peak, which is Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal still stands strong as the best shooter game ever made. Like, actually. It's constant peak. And even having played Ultrakill, I think Eternal is just flat out better in its execution. Doom Eternal's soundtrack, the bosses, the gameplay, the guns, the movement, the story, all of it adds up into the absolute cinema that it is. And it stands strong. Doom Eternal was the first or second game I played since the start of lockdown, which was then the first step into quitting multiplayer games for single player games, so it started a domino. With all said, Doom Eternal is as close to a masterpiece as you get. 9.2 out of 10. Marauders were the only thing holding it back. They're that bad. Fuck Marauders, bro, holy shit. Now then, the next RPG game I played, the final spin-off left, or localized spin-off that is, Kurohyou. Kurohyou was built up to be a great game. Everyone glazed it and praised it to no end. I made a video on the whole journey. I really want to like the game, but as it stands, it's fine. It's easily the weakest RPG game. Weaker than Pirate Yakuza. The soundtrack was the big thing I loved, but everything else, it was just kinda okay. So yeah, it didn't fully work out the way I was hoping. It's 6.8 out of 10. The combat held it back. Maybe it got improved into, I'll find out eventually. Okay, closing up May is another replay. Yeah, this year did have more replays than last year, I think, but we're getting up there in years past that I've started to long for some replays. Hell, I really want to replay FF16 on PC and Bioshock 1 next year. But yeah, the replay is in fact Persona 5 Strikers, since it's been a good 4 years. It's still a great game. It wasn't as masterful as I remember, I put it on S tier, but it was a blast that had better villains than the base Persona 5 and some really good music, which is water is wet type stuff. Musou games are great, but the repetition does add up, however. A strong follow-up to my P5R Replay a few months back, 9 out of 10. Still holds up extremely well, but definitely not S tier anymore. I'd say it's high A tier. So, June. June was rather important because that is when the next marathon started. The most important marathon of the year. The MGS marathon. Starting off June was MGS1, allegedly emulated on DuckStation. It was a good enough game held back by it was a good enough game held back a bit by the gameplay, but for its time it had an incredible story, incredible music, and great voice acting, incredible voice acting, along with the story and insanely iconic moments like the Mantis controller section. MGS1 was good, but in the grand scheme of things I'd give it just a solid 7 out of 10. I do think I should play through Twin Snakes to have a better experience, but whatever. Maybe MGS Alpha will come out next. Watch my video to truly see my thoughts on the whole marathon. Then we move on to MGS2. MGS2 is a game that is pure ambition and subversion. MGS2 improved upon 1 so much, which led to it aging much more gracefully. I don't want to go too deep because I really want to pivot over people to watch one of my best videos ever, so pretty please watch it. MGS2 was definitely one of my favorites, and even if the rating won't truly show how I feel, know that it is the second most impact an MGS game made me feel with its ending. While the rating is 8.5 out of 10, the impact is absolute cinema and Kojima's best creation, I think. Now, on to the next one, Lies of P Overture. Before I continue though, I'm gonna mention something I forgot. I usually do 2 game rotations, one longer one shorter, and do them at the same time with interchanging. For example, Lies of P Overture and MGS3 were played at the same time. MGS3 took a 3-day break after finishing 2, so Overture was started a little bit earlier, stuff like that. Anyways, the list. Overture. Overture is just better than Shadow of the Erdtree in my opinion. It's not perfect, but goddamn is it a great DLC that delivers extremely well. Great length, amazing additions of weapons and outfits. 50-50 bosses, but not to the extent of Sota being 50-50 bad or amazing. In Overture, it's either amazing or just okay. Malkiona is the best gang fight of all of Soulsborne, and Arlecchino is infinitely more enjoyable than Consort Radahn. 8 out of 10. Amazing DLC. Then we have MGS3 as the final game of June. MGS3 is, as mentioned, the most consistent MGS game. Great bosses, good levels, great story, good music, but it lacks the impact that MGS2 and Rising had. Sure, it has the best final fight in the series with the boss, but there was something missing that I can't quite explain. Regardless, MGS3 was a solid 8.7 out of 10. Thus is June finished. Now we'll go into July. July was a very heated month, but a short one. It contained 2 incredible games and an incredibly overrated movie. Starting off with Stellar Blade. So Stellar Blade, watch my video on it to grasp what I think. Stellar Blade was an amazing game held back by a mediocre story. The gameplay was incredibly fun, it had a lot of 2010s game charm, and the visuals looked great. Oh, and don't forget the soundtrack. Expedition 33 is an insane soundtrack, up there with like top 3 soundtracks of all time. But I genuinely think the closest to E33's OST was Stellar Blade this year for me. Holy shit, the amount of S-tier bangers in this game, it's so underrated and definitely my second favorite OST of the year. But since it's the first one is Expedition 33, that's how you know that's good. As mentioned, the game really only lacked in the story department, but the ride itself was so good. Again, it's a very 2010s game, but made in 2025. 9 out of 10. Okay, now we get to Hades 2 Early Access. So I waited a while to play it, so I can have more content to fuck with, and I played it in July. Little did I know the full release would be in 2 months. Regardless, Hades 2, check my video out. I'm someone who doesn't like roguelikes much, and let me tell you, Hades 1 was the Hail Mary. Hades 2 just improves on everything, but the story of Hades 1 and most of the cast. While I grew to love Malinois as much as, if not more, than Zagreus, I think the overall supporting cast was kinda weak. Kronos was great, Hecate was amazing, but everyone else was just kinda okay. Nemesis as well. They're just fine. I preferred most others from Hades 1, not gonna lie. Seeing Thanatos, seeing Sisyphus, seeing Eurydice, and so many more. But the gameplay of 2 is just night and day compared to 1. And keep in mind, 1 is amazing. The game is genuinely close to a masterpiece, but the issue within it was the pre-patch ending that soured the experience. Granted, it was patched and I checked it out on YouTube and it does seem better, but the sourness still resides because that was my first impression. Regardless, 2 whole routes, amazing build variety, great weapons, great music, and a consistent style place the game at a 9.8 out of 10. When it comes to Supergiant games, they still strike gold. They're not immune from missing sometimes, but they still strike gold. Like I said, I do hope we get something new or narrative focused next. Okay, final game of July. Well, game, quote unquote. MGS4. MGS4 is... I'm tired of repeating myself, so just watch the video. It was great, but the cutscenes were just too abundant and genuinely bored me because the gameplay was great. The story was mixed with amazing highs, but with some weird lows. 8 out of 10 despite everything, the highs really make up for it. Now we move on to August. August. Started off with a replay of Yakuza Kiwami since it's been 4 years. Modded Kiwami this time. It's still great, it's still amazing. it's also still held back by the abundant Majima fights and being a remake of 1. 8.5 out of 10. Had an absolute blast, especially with Legend Remix and instant style switching, which made it feel unironically as good as Lost Judgment. Okay, now we got another replay, Persona 4 Golden, 5 years later. So seeing that P4 Revival will come out in the next 2 years, I assume, I wanted to revisit Golden for the final time, and it is weird. I originally didn't want a remake of 4, I'd rather they remake 2. But playing it this time, and knowing that P3 Reload exists, it just makes no sense not to make a remake. The only worry I have is the voice cast. The English voice actors are genuinely iconic, and it does seem like they'll switch them out, which is gonna suck major ass. Persona 3's cast-in I didn't really care much about, besides Liam O'Brien and Junpei's. But the replacements in Reload did well, especially Junpei's new voice actor. So P4G does need a remake, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Regardless, 10 out of 10 because it's a Persona game. I can't, man, I can't. It too much impact. And now we got a triple replay. Goddamn. Metal Gear Rising. So continuing my MGS marathon, we get to a Metal Gear Rising replay, but experienced organically. It's still genuine cinema. MGRR is my favorite Metal Gear game, and it's not even a Metal Gear game. It's just so good. The bosses, the music, the goofiness, the length, it's perfect. The gameplay is just so fun. 9.5 out of 10. Absolute cinema.
This ends now.
Now we move on to Mafia Old Country. Oh boy. This game was weird. It started off great, and just like Mafia 1, it fell apart at the end. I loved the setting, I loved Enzo, but everything else was just okay or good. It really stood tall as a 7 out of 10 game. I personally give it a 7.5 because of Enzo, and that it was better than, unfortunately, that it was better than all of 3. But the game lacked in the performance department, and not to mention the ending just being atrocious. And the whole story being incredibly predictable, but at least it was predictable good and not predictable bad, you know. A good enough game, 7.5 out of 10. But like I said, Mafia 1 is still my favorite Mafia game. Okay, now we got the next step of the MGS marathon, Ground Zeroes. It was fine. It was too short and too expensive. Thank God that I allegedly played it without any financial cost, because as good as it is, it's just a tech demo, overpriced. 7 out of 10, literally just one single mission. Alright. Now for the final game of August, we have MGS5 Phantom Pain. Now the thing is, Phantom Pain was started on the 27th, but was finished on the 11th of September. So, yeah. It also kind of counts as September. Who gives a shit though? Anyways, Phantom Pain is the conclusion to my long 3-month MGS marathon. A replay after almost 10 years. Having experienced the entire series alongside Rising and Peace Walker that I just realized I forgot to mention. Whatever, it was after 4. Now, did it live up to my memories of it? My constant defending of it? Nope. I think it's a great game, held back by the story and the open world. The open world is just pathetic. The level design outside of 3 sections is just abysmal. And the story has its moments, but it isn't anything special. It is miles worse than 4 and 1. Hell, even Peace Walker. But the gameplay was so addicting, which really fueled my stance on being mixed about it. It's an unfortunate game, and I can't really imagine how different it would have turned out had Konami and Kojima's relationship been better. I could see it being polished, but that's just a hope for the future. A hope for Fizzant. It's a 7.8 out of 10. It's just incredible gameplay, held back by the empty world, a mediocre story, and just constant bloat. Starting off, we have Doom Dark Ages. Finally playing it to see what the deal with it is. Is it truly that mediocre? Nah, no it's not. It has questionable things, but I did overall like it. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was as good as 2016 and Eternal, but I do think it was great enough. The music was lacking because no Mick Gordon, for a fair reason. Fuck you, Marty. The levels were mixed. When there were no gimmick levels like flying or mech suits, they were good. But like 40% of the game is just gimmick levels which get old after 5 minutes. The game being parry-centric was also kinda iffy. And the movement being slow was not that bad because I bumped up the speed to 150%, so it felt much better, and then later I think to 200. But even so, even at 100%, it's not that slow. People were building it up to be some Concord level movement, but nah. It was a good experience, but the most lacking out of all the 3 games. I do like how each game is unique in its own way. 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5. Yeah, no, it's 8.5. The weapons were great and the bosses were the best. The next game, Steelrising. Okay, Steelrising was on my list for a while. I think Greedfall is an ambitious game that does kind of feel mid. But I did respect Spiders for trying something. As for Steelrising, they tried making a Souls-like. And honestly, it's just kind of whatever. Like originally during the first few hours, I actually liked it a lot. It didn't feel as clunky as I thought. But it just overstays its welcome by a good, I don't know, 5 hours. I finished it in 13 hours, but it lacks enemy variety. There's like 4 enemy types, and reused enemies as bosses. There's some cool stuff here and there, and a lack of weapon variety, aside of 5 weapon types. And the story seemed rather boring, so I didn't really care. I don't really want to ever play it again, but I don't think it was bad. I think it was just painfully mediocre. It did try and do some stuff, but overall it kind of failed. Again, I respect them for trying. 6.5 out of 10. Now after Steelrising, I moved on to the Kiwami 2 Replay, but before that I dabbled in a few hours of Oblivion Remastered to see if it aged well. And no, it did not age well. Despite the graphical upgrade, I didn't like my experience with Oblivion and felt extremely bored compared to Skyrim. I won't rate it, but just know I was bored to death. I haven't played Oblivion in a good 10 years, but I remember having fun then. This time, not so much. Anyhow, Kiwami 2 Replay. Kiwami 2 was always the game that pushes people away, like 3. Due to the Dragon Engine being just not good at the start. They got better after Kiwami 2, but 6 and Kiwami 2 were always the black sheep, at least I think so. But yes, unmodded the game was okay. Modded with Legend Remix, the game was actually a blast. Insane how mods change a game's combat so much by not doing that much. It's an 8 out of 10. Genuinely do think that the original Yakuza 2 is better than Kiwami 2 in the combat department at least. Onwards into the next game. A mini marathon that wasn't even planned. Splinter Cell games. The newest 3 games that is. I was planning on doing them next year, but since I had a blast doing the MGS marathon, I wanted to go for some more stealth games. So I did Splinter Cell Chaos Theory first. Chaos Theory's atmosphere was immaculate. The levels were great, but the movement was clunky even for its time, and the combat controls. The game has great mechanics like the light and the moving speed mechanic, but overall, it was good. It felt dated, but again, it is a matter of preference. As my first Splinter Cell game, it was a good first step, 7 out of 10. I love the audio design and the atmosphere, and just how good it feels. Then we have Conviction. Conviction fumbled more than it hit. It felt more action-focused and felt way less interesting. Now then, what would I give it? A 6.5 out of 10. It was okay. Now, unlike Conviction, Blacklist was absolutely enjoyable. In fact, Blacklist is my personal favorite of the 3. In fact, I think Blacklist is better than MGS Phantom Pain. That's just how fun it is. Genuinely had a blast, and it allowed you to approach in different ways. Non-lethal stealth, lethal stealth, guns blazing, whatever you want. It's so good. Great story, cool set pieces, good dialogue. It actually felt fresh. 8.5 out of 10. Blacklist is very underrated, and I highly recommend people to try it out. That or Chaos Theory. I think either of those is worth playing. Okay, now we're approaching the end slowly. It's time for October. October started off with a rather hyped game for me. Ghost of Tsushima is in my top 3 stories of all time, and in my top, 7 games of all time, 10 games of all time. So it's safe to say Ghost of Yotei had some big shoes to fill. And I was really excited to see what was gonna happen, even if I was indifferent on Jin not being in the game. Atsu, I am not against female protagonists. In fact, I am a horny individual, everyone knows that. But Atsu is just so uninteresting. She's so flat and a generic revenge story. Erika Ishii doesn't even pull the same godly performance that Jin's actor does. I forgot his name. Sorry. But she never has a memorable moment, besides the aura and hype moments of the boss fights. The intro is the only time she actually feels great. The game is just inferior story-wise in every single sense. Side quests are also inferior. Side content is better, and the gameplay is better, even if I do like the stances a bit more than the weapons. But the game is just Ghost of Tsushima 1.5. It's good, great even, but it falls flat in the aspect that made Tsushima stand out. Even being a Ubisoft game, but not by Ubisoft. Story and the characters were what shined. Yotei has a very lame villain compared to Cotton Khan. A mediocre story and acting, but packed in a great gameplay. 8 out of 10.
Our father would want us to fight for the living! Not sacrifice them for revenge!
Our family was murdered, and all you care about is playing samurai.
After Yotei, I moved on to replaying GTA5. It has been 8 years since playing GTA5 for the first time. Yes, I know. And it aged so well. Well, aged is a weird thing to say since, 2013. But yeah, it plays really well. The story is still my favorite story, or at least on par with Vice City. But that's mainly nostalgia. Michael, Franklin, and Trevor are just so iconic and genuinely the best protagonists, with such good chemistry, and the story was well done. The game pacing is not an issue, the music was incredible, and just... that's all. The game is still it's such a blast. 8.5. Khazan. Khazan was the next game, and Khazan was a really fun game. Now the issue is, people were hyping it up, and while I think it's great, it is very much just a Neo ripoff. A Neo ripoff without any of the gameplay variety. They even got the level system down, they even used the equipment system, the entire loot gimmick of the Team Ninja games. It is a great game, but I struggled to call it an S-tier Souls-like. Some of the bosses are mostly okay, well, hell, most of the bosses are okay, but this game has 2 bosses I absolutely love and put in S-tier. The coffin guy, I forgot his name, it's my absolute favorite. And the second one is the bubble lady, I think. Overall, Khazan was a great Souls-like, with a great art style, but ultimately it's a Neo clone without the good stuff of Neo. 8 out of 10. At least the length isn't too bad, so that's good. Okay. And now it's time to get doxed. Hollow Knight Silksong does not deserve Game of the Year. Now, I know I put the first game in S tier in my tier list. I know, but I was blinded by fanaticism. I think I should drop it to an A tier. Now, the issue of Silksong itself is, it is just like Shadow of the Erdtree, amplifying all the good things and the bad things tenfold. I don't like platforming, and in this game they were abundant. I hate the runbacks, and they were atrocious this time. I hate, okay, well, this is a subjective one. I hate 2D Metroidvanias because I do not like traversing them. I love the art style, and the music, and the fact that it lived up to the hype allegedly after many years. But to me, this game just isn't it. I respect it. I really, really do. But I cannot for the life of me say that I want to play it again anytime soon, especially since dropping it 10 hours in. I just was not having fun. I was just not feeling it. I'd rather go for a modded Hollow Knight instead of Silksong. I'm really 6 out of 10. Okay, final game of October. We got Ultrakill. Check my yapping video. I loved the game. I really did. But again, I reached Unk status. So during the last layer, Violence, I dropped the difficulty. I love the game for all the things it does, but some things do not stick with me properly, and therefore I give it an 8 out of 10. But I do think it's probably a 9 out of 10 objectively. It's my rating though, so 8 out of 10. Now, onwards to November. So November started off with a replay of a very amazing game. A game many people, including myself, praise. Nier Automata. So I originally played Automata in 2019, a year after I watched Ricky play it for the first time. I wanted to experience it myself. I got Route C ending and then I stopped. This time around I went for ending D and E. I did all the main endings and I had an absolute blast. Now, as you might recall, in Gippy 2024 I played through Nier Replicant, which was rather meh. Not gonna lie, it was carried by the music and Kaine. Everything else was just mediocre. The story, the gameplay, the side missions, everything else. Some people love it more than Automata, but for me, having played Automata as my first Nier game in 2019, Replicant was an insane downgrade. Having now replayed Automata, I still stand by that. Automata just sweeps the ever-living shit out of Replicant. However, I did now connect some lore pieces myself, having played Replicant, like Devil and Popola's role and so on. The Automata replay was an absolute blast that didn't take me too long. However, it came at the cost of realizing 9S's part is just so boring. I hate the hacking during 9S's sections, I just despise it. It lowers the score from a 9.5 to a 9 out of 10, genuinely. The only issues I had with it is just the 9S hacking and something else that I can't remember right now, but I think it was something small. 9 out of 10. Genuinely close to a masterpiece. And now, having played Stellar Blade as well, while it's the same rating, Automata has the much more interesting story, while Stellar Blade has the better gameplay. Barely, because I really do like the gameplay in Automata much more than Replicant. At least they both have S-tier soundtracks. And now it's time for a stinker. Final Fantasy XIII. My first turn-based FF game. I was going to choose between FF10 and 13, so I chose 13 since it was a bit more polarizing. And I was interested in seeing Lightning because Rule 34. Now, is it a stinker? Not actually. I did drop it the last 2 chapters. I lowered the difficulty to easy, but even still the game was just not my type of turn-based. I hate how it was turn-based, but active. I'd rather do press turns or just traditional turn-based because the game is just brain dead. It really is just an auto battle simulator. I hate it. I don't hate it, I just don't like it. The best part of 13 was the music and some of the characters like Lightning, Fang, and Snow. I liked the cast, and I really didn't mind the level design being linear, far from my issues. It was really just the length and the simplicity of the combat. I really don't like the paradigm shift system. It was built up to be something insane, but all it is just a Persona 3 tactics menu, but in real time. I don't like the combat, and I don't like the progression in the game. But yeah, the game is a 6.5 out of 10. Will I play the other 13 games? Not anytime soon. I will do Final Fantasy X next, and I hope that one sticks with me. I don't hate the game, but I did reach my boiling point with it. At least the music was amazing. SMT Raidou Remastered is the next game, and finally an actual quote-unquote new SMT game that I played after the train wreck of Strange Journey and all the other replays. It was an action game surprisingly, and overall I did like it a lot. As a remaster, it's amazing. It might be the best remaster they've done. I even looked up the differences online, and it's not even a remaster, it's kind of like a remake, 50-50 of the time. I love the setting, I like the combat, I like the characters, I love the music, and the art style was memorable, but overall it wasn't anything to write home about. I'd say it's a high B tier SMT game. The combat, while fun, was very simple. It needed more combos to truly stand out. But keep in mind they did improve the combat in the remaster, so I can only assume how mid the original is. Overall, it's a 7.5 out of 10. Very fun SMT game. Nothing amazing, but the music and the style stands out. I hope they remaster the second game now. Okay. Final November game. Dispatch. Oh man, I haven't played a Telltale game since The Wolf Among Us, like 8 years ago. And I haven't played a choice-based game since 2023, playing Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. And while I did want to play this game, I didn't really want to play it so soon after coming out. I waited for all the episodes and then I played it. It was amazing. It was genuinely incredible. It oozed charm and confidence, and I had a smile on my face, similar to Deadpool last year. 95% of the game I had a smile, while the 5% was just sadness, because, yeah, it was just so charming. I loved everything. But the dispatching. The characters, the story, the music, the art style, the dialogue, it's so good. It's so good. Really only held back by the villain Shroud being kinda mediocre and the dispatching being kinda boring. Really boring, actually. Everything else, actual Kino. If E33 didn't come out this year, I really feel like Dispatch could have been up there in Game of the Year. 9.5 out of 10. I am so hyped to see Season 2. Now we move on to the final month, December. December. Okay, so December was a very short one. The only quote-unquote new game it had was Metal Gear Solid Delta. But it also contained a replay of Bloodborne on PC. And now the remainder of this month is all just playing HOM 3 and some For Honor until the new year passes. And then I will play through Ninja Gaiden 4 and do a replay marathon of Danganronpa after 8 years. I got the Mass Effect marathon, the Dead Rising marathon, a lot of stuff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. MGS Delta was a 1-to-1 remake, an amazing remake of MGS 3. I loved it. But it is just beyond overpriced, and it does not try to do anything different. Like fixing the Pain boss fight, because that is the only bad fight in the game. The Fury is also someone I don't like in this game. Or is it the Fury? The Flamethrower guy. But I wouldn't say it's bad, it's tedious. But everything else was just amazing. An actual 1-to-1 remake, and I'll give it a 1-to-1 score. 8.7 out of 10. The graphics don't really help it that much if the gameplay wasn't altered in the slightest. I think that's only fair enough. I do think they should have added something like MGS5's reflex mode or the MGS5 movement system. Besides that, amazing. Now, finally, Bloodborne on PC. It's Bloodborne on PC. Fighting Ludwig on 60 FPS. Fighting Maria on 60 FPS. Fighting the Orphan on 60 FPS. But then it gets to second phase and he does the lightning scream, which lowers it to like 15 FPS. Still, amazing experience. It's actually insane how we went from barely booting the game up to fully playable in a year. And now there's mods and an overhaul mod just in progress. It's so peak. The only mods I used were a starting class mod, which made this build be an arcane build. And as someone that never did one, it's probably my least favorite build I've ever done. I think it's strong, but it didn't have as much fun as I would have had if I did a normal physical build this time. You know, 60 FPS. And the other mod was the more options at lamp, letting you level and upgrade and buy stuff at the lamp. Simple stuff like that really made it amazing. Rating is Bloodborne out of 10. Come on, dude, it's Bloodborne. And with that, we are done. Holy shit, this is a long script. Probably longer than the last one, despite, 10 less games. Okay. That's time for the final part of the video. My top 10. Now then, was anyone surprised at my top 15? Probably not. Expedition 33 is gonna get hated by people that only play FIFA and COD games with absolutely zero media literacy. It's okay to think it's a 7 out of 10, for example, if you don't like it. But Jesus Christ, you people just blindly praise stuff like Silksong and shit and just say what is E33, I never heard of it, or Rigged Game Awards. Actual lobotomites. E33 isn't perfect. It lacks in Act 3 being short and the game being balanced around parrying and dodging more than a turn-based game. I love it as an option, but not as the entire game combat. But everything else, immaculate. This was a great year. I don't think it's as good as 2024, but E33, Hades 2, and I Am Your Beast really do make it stand out. I do not know how 2026 will go. I'll be moving countries twice. Once will be my first time going alone, and it will primarily just be a bunch of Steam Deck replays while I'm there and don't have my PC. But during the first 5 months, I want to do a Danganronpa replay marathon, play Gaiden 4, play a Dead Rising marathon as my next games, and after that Mass Effect, not to mention plenty of indie or smaller games like Fallen Aces and wanting to play through Wu-Chang Fallen Feathers. 2026 will be strange. I doubt it will be in the 50 games range, but I guess we'll see when we get there. Probably be like 35-40 maybe. I also do want to play some multiplayer stuff in 2026 and start streaming every so often, so we'll see how that will go. 2025 was great. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you whenever. Like I said, this channel is in a rough spot right now, so I'll have to think it over the next month or so. Take care and bye-bye. See you next year.